When you retire, you may get a chance to go to football heaven. This is football heaven.
Hey guys, Jameer Howardson here with the Mission Podcast, and we're so lucky to have the opportunity to honor the great heroes of the game, preserve their history, promote their values, and celebrate excellence everywhere. And as we're coming to the final week of our 2021 finalist interviews, today we're so honored to have the opportunity to catch up with what I heard is one of the best, and I've seen one of the best nickel corners in the game, Buccaneers legend and first-time finalist for the Pro Football Hall of Fame, Mr. Ronde Barber. Ronde, thank you for joining us here on The Mission.
I'm glad to be here. And if you can find a better one than me, I'd like to see him.
I know that's right. Hey, man, we're going to dive into it because I got some testimonials, and everybody kept it 100, man. Well, congratulations is definitely in order. This is your fourth year eligibility. However, it is your first year as a finalist. Before we go in, what was it like receiving the notification from CEO President David Baker?
Yeah. So I've been, every year I get, I've been, our local guy, Ira Kaufman, hey, we're going to go in, we're going to see what's going to happen. And every year I get that little notification, or if it's a call, hey, maybe next year. Well, this year, I was actually on the phone with Ira when David Baker called me, and I was so into talking to Ira that I didn't even answer David's call. I forgot to answer it. I was like, David Baker, I probably should answer it, but Ira was talking my ear off, and so I let it go to voicemail. And I called back the offices later, and heard from them as well. So it's like a lot of these guys. You feel like you're worthy. You don't really know. You're not in the room. You can't speak for yourself, so to speak. I mean, I think I do a really good job telling myself, but I'll let them do it. But you never know what they're going to come back with. And so there's always that level of uncertainty that makes you doubt yourself a little bit, doubt your credentials a little bit. But this was the first year where I felt good about it. I felt really good about it because Charles Woodson's on the ballot, and him and I are very similar players, very similar stats, same amount really. He played a couple years more than me playing time in the league. And it looks congruent to me. So I was excited about that. And then, what do you say? You get to from 25 to 15 and you're like, well, it's not like you're there yet. You still got 10 more guys to beat out. So it's been a really nice process. I've enjoyed it this time around, and looking forward to the vote whenever it comes out.
Speaking of the process, what's the phone calls and the outpour support been like for you? Yeah,
it's crazy. In today's world, it's all about social media shout outs and whatnot. And I got a ton of those, but my best call, I told my buddy this the other day, or I told this media about my buddy the other day. His birthday was on the day that they were announcing the finalists, and I had forgotten to call him. I was sick in my head, like I got to wait for this call, and I finally called him. I was like, "Hey man, I hope you're feeling all right. I forgot to get you a birthday present, but next best thing I can do is say your best friend's a finalist for the Hall of Fame." And he starts getting all giddy and arms on his hair, standing up. So that's my best story. Obviously, I call my mom, call my brother. They're in the finally, they're part of the finally group. But it's something that you really share with everybody that was with you during your career. And they probably have as much or more vested in, seeing me get there than even myself, because I know what I did. I played the game. I understood the work that I put into achieving the things that I achieved, and they were just kind of spectators. So they've been spectating this whole thing forever. So this is just another step in that, I think.
Well, your former position coach and your former head coach weighed in, and I want to read their testimonials and get your reflections. Okay. But simply put, Herm Edwards says he's probably one of the best nickelbacks to play the game. Coach Gruden said because he's the best nickel corner of all time, TD maker, turnover machine, and the best pound-for-pound tackler you will find. rare instincts, off the chart intangibles, and never seen before durability.
Yeah, yeah. Coach Gruden got me right in my prime. It was under Gru that I led the league in interceptions one year. It was really when I started making my Pro Bowl, started making my All Pros. Herm's perspective is probably the best because Herm saw me as a rookie in 1997 when I didn't play I only played in one game. My rookie year, and I played in the playoff game, which was my second game, but only one regular season game. So he saw the foundation. He saw the kid that was struggling in training camp, that had to do the extra things, that had to stay later, that had to learn how to be a pro. And then he saw it happen literally the next year, in 98 and then 99 while he was still here. He saw the progression. He's like, okay, I remember talking to him. He's like, young man, you're going to get your opportunity one day. Just keep doing what you're doing. Keep doing what you're doing. And for a young player, you're like, what does that mean? I'm going to play 5 games next year, or I'm actually going to start. You just don't expect where I ended up to be from where I started, if that makes any sense at all. Because from where I started, that's joke with my daughter the other day. She was laughing about all these, oh, you're a Hall of Famer now, whatever. I was like, hey, babe, I started from the bottom, and then her boyfriend here, and he's like, and now you're at the top, It's one of those things. So yeah, I started at the bottom and had to work my way up. I wasn't a first round draft pick. I wasn't filled with high expectations from a national or even a team perspective. It was a build and it was a climb, and it was something that really made me who I was. And, having to deal with that adversity and having to deal with that struggle is really why I played 16 years and why I accomplished a lot of the things that I accomplished. And it's nice that my coaches, especially those two, because they were part of founding me, have that kind of reverence for the way that I played the game.
Well, they say defense wins championships. And when you go back to that 2002 season, you were part of a defense that was ranked number 1, but it consisted up front, anchored by Hall of Famer Warren Sapp.
Yep.
Bucs legend Simeon Rice on the end. Hall of Famer linebacker Derek Brooks.
Yeah.
Secondary, yourself, Brian Kelly, and finalist Lynch.
Yeah. It's pretty awe-inspiring when you look, when you can name out those kind of credentials of players. 2 of them are in the Hall of Fame. 2 others, and 3 others, if you include myself, could easily be in the Hall of Fame. Brian Kelly also led the league in interceptions one year, the year after me, in fact. We have a Super Bowl MVP on that team, and Dexter Jackson. That defense was special, and it was special for a long time. I mean, we only won 1 championship, but we easily could have contended for, from 99 probably to about 04. 4 or 5 more. We didn't, but we got our 1. But when you look at the way that we played the game, it was very simple. We probably had 8 defensive calls, cover 2 a lot, 3 deep a lot. We played man. We played man with the lurker, and we had about 4 or 5 blitzes up every week. That was it. And the genius in that was the simplicity of the scheme, and it allowed all of us, every player that you just mentioned right there, it allowed all of us to know exactly what we're going to do in any given situation. And we would rep 1st and 10, rep 2nd and 10, rep 2nd and 8, rep, 3rd and 5, 3rd and 3. And so any of those 8 or 9 defenses that we had, you couldn't fool us. So the reason we were able to make so many plays is because we were so locked in onto the little details of all of those defenses. And for 10 years or so, nobody did it better. And, you couple that with some pretty good talent, and Warren and Derek and John and Simeon, and, the talent on top of the preparation, so to speak, is why we thrived as a defense.
You just made a joke beforehand, how you started from the bottom, now you're here.
Now you're here,
but
right?
You're one of the league's, all-time Ironmen. Your 7th all-time in consecutive games started with 215, and you're above your former teammate Derek Brooks, who sits at 208. But talk about your dedication and how you approach the game.
Well, I joke with Derek. I told him I played long enough just so I could take that record. But I'm not going to lie. So I can go all the way back to high school for this reference for you. So when I was in 10th grade in high school, Tiki and I were first years on the high school football team. Tiki played. He started. I didn't start. There was a guy ahead of me. He got hurt. I came in, played, made All-State. Rest is history. We go to college. Tiki gets, not redshirted. I'm redshirted. I'm not playing. And a guy, my second year, guy gets hurt. They plug me in. ACC, all ACC, rookie of the year, led the nation in interceptions. And so it's like, man, I see how my opportunities are coming, right? Get to the league. I don't play my first year. Second year, I'm behind the same guy that I was the year before. About week 3, he gets hurt. And he misses a couple of weeks, and I take over. He never saw his job again. And so to me, for the next 15 years, if I could walk, I was playing, man. It was just the things that ingrain in your head about wanting to play. And I always thought that I could do my job better than anybody else could do my job, and that's. It was a personal thing. It was probably some hubris in that for me, that I thought I was that good, that I could do it better than when I was hurt than somebody that wasn't. But it was another one of those chips that had stacked on my shoulders for years, and I wasn't going to let it go. So
that's amazing. Ronde, I've been racking my brain all night on how to ask you this question. And, I look at this stat, you're one of 5 players that are really unique. Leroy Butler,
yeah,
Brian Dawkins. I gotta get that right.
Yeah.
Charles Woodson, Brian Dawkins, Charles Woodson, and yourself. NFL history to have 35 interceptions and 20 sacks. And that's an amazing stat. And it's it speaks to your football IQ, your versatility, and your physicality. What made you guys so unique that defensive coordinators were able to tap into that skill set where you guys were able to do dynamic things like that on the field? Maybe I just asked the question. I don't know. I had to kind of I just been like, man, that is so unique.
That's a great question. And to answer why I was able to do it and why Charles was able to do it, it takes a little bit of a history lesson, because back before the 90s, you put a defensive back, that 5th corner in there, that 5th defensive back, that 3rd corner inside, and he was really usually your 3rd corner, the guy, and you would just go in there and cover. But in 98, 99, when that position started to evolve for us, I essentially played like a linebacker for half the game. And that's really the era when teams started going to 3 wide. So 11 personnel, there's 3 wide receivers on the field all the time, but they would still put 11 personnel in there and try to run the football. So it took Lovie Smith and Herm, and to a degree, and Monty and Tony Dungy teaching me how to be a linebacker, essentially. Be like a small linebacker. That's why I had 100 tackles for so many years in a row, because they put us in those defenses and they try to run at us. And it was like, well, if we're going to play this, if we're going to keep a linebacker off the field, you got to play, meaning me, has to play like a linebacker. So included in that was all those blitz schemes. It was all those opportunities to rush the quarterback. Zone dogs came into favor around them. Jimmy Johnson in Philadelphia and Monty were really the big. I mean, they'd been around before, but those two defenses were the ones that made them really popular enough that everybody else wanted to do it after the fact. And we had the schemes down. We knew how to long stick the defensive end or the defensive tackle and open up these gaps. So nobody knew that we were coming. And they were schemes that offenses hadn't seen before. And they're like, I wasn't expecting number 20 to blitz, And so now, it's evolved so much. I remember at the end of my career, you hear quarterbacks at the line of scrimmage talking, 54 is the mic. It's really pointing out to the offensive line who they have to be responsible for. I'll be responsible for the other. At the end of my career, they were like, 20 is the mic. Okay, the offensive. I got to beat an offensive lineman now. Whereas before, I'm blitzing into the edge or into a B gap, having to beat a back, and it's like a back coming across the formation can't block me. So I would say it was the evolution of the defense during that era, the era of the guys that you just mentioned, that allowed us to do that. And the other 3 are safeties, and so they're normally box players. What makes Charles and I unique is that we were nickel corners, and to be honest with you, and Charles will agree with this, I was doing it before Charles. Charles was an outside corner when he was in Oakland, and when he went to Green Bay, when he was a free agent, is when they started playing him in there, and that's when he started to accumulate those kind of multiple numbers, those versatile numbers inside as well.
Thank you for the history lesson. And I appreciate you letting me work that question out, because I'm looking at this and I'm like, this is an amazing stat.
Yeah.
I just have to ask them.
Yeah, you really have to be instinctive. You have to understand, what offenses are going to try to do to you, and when you can go make your plays in there. And I, over the years, like I said, just repetition and having seen so many different schemes come at me, it really became second nature. And then you just let your athleticism breathe and go make a bunch of plays. And I'm not shy about saying this. Charles playing in there, Charles was a better athlete than me. I mean, that dude 6'1.5", arms forever, Heisman Trophy winner, 4'3", 40 guy. He should have thrived in there. You know what I mean? It was to their benefit that they decided that that's where he was best suited, and he really dominated the position in there. So it's nice to have similar accolades that he.
But it's great to be the blueprint where guys were actually studying your game and they were drawing from your plays. So
Sure.
I salute you.
Thank you.
In 2002 NFC Championship game, you had a 92-yard pick six to steal the game where Tampa Bay went into the Super Bowl. Relive that moment for me.
Yeah, that was one of those. You have those nemesis type teams. Well, Philly was a nemesis team for us. We had been knocked out of the playoffs 2 years running. Tony gets fired because of it, essentially. We go to Philly first or beginning of the season in 2002, that Super Bowl season, and lose. And so the overriding feeling for all of us was that in order for us to win a championship this year, which that's what John Gruden dictated to us, we are winning a championship this year. That was the first thing he said when he walked into our meeting when he first got hired as head coach. So we knew we were going to have to go through Philly. So we beat San Fran at home in the divisional round, go to the NFC Championship game. And for me, it was, people talk about zones. For me, it was more like hyper-focus. I'd been there so many times. I had a really good feel for what Philly was going to try to do on offense. I knew that they thought I was probably the weak link, for whatever reason. And they gave me my opportunities to make plays. They kept bringing plays at me. They kept running the ball at me. They kept throwing screens at me. So I don't know how many tackles. I had a sack and a caused fumble. I think in that game, I'm not sure. I think I had 4 pass breakups. I think in that game I registered a sack in every possible category except the fumble recovery. And then coming down towards the end of the game, they're driving. We have a lead. It's not comfortable, but a lead. And, Donovan's doing Donovan things. He was scramble all over the place. And, he couldn't run through the field, but he could run across the field and run away from defensive linemen and just make these ridiculous passes down the field. And so we're in that hurry up, probably 4 or 5 minute offense field. They know they need 2 scores. So they're hurrying up down the field, and he makes a big play down the field. The very next snap, they're in a planned play. We already know what their plan is. I'm gonna show blitz. So I stepped into the line of scrimmage, and I just blitzed a couple of plays before. Stepped into the line of scrimmage. He thought I was coming, and he dropped up. He stepped back and threw a little hitch to Antonio, and lo and behold, we're just sitting in cover 2. So he threw it right where I was supposed to be. I just wasn't there when the ball was snapped. I ran there as soon as the ball was snapped, and he thought I was coming. He thought I was blitzing, and all I had to do was catch it. It was kind of an awkward catch. It was kind of like,
right.
It wasn't like this. It was kind of like, and it just stuck to my hands, and Todd Pinkston wasn't going to catch me. So
when you see Donovan to this day, do you guys kind of like relive that play? They're like,
yeah, man. I remember. What's funny? You say that with Donovan. A couple years later, we had a great game in Tampa. It was October. It was the hottest damn day I've ever had. Right. And I had an interception for a touchdown in the second quarter. I had another interception for a touchdown like late in the third or maybe early in the fourth quarter. And it was a game that Matt Bryant kicked a 62-yard field goal to beat him. But our only 2 touchdowns were by me. That was it. So I'm walking out of the stadium later, and this is not a lie. This is a true story. Walking out of the players' entrance, and I see Donovan's mom. And Donovan's mom, she's with her husband, and she goes, "Why do you keep doing this to my boy?" I'm so sorry. I'm just playing football. I don't want it to be Donovan, but it is. But yeah, we've been good friends since. We have the same representation off the field, so it's all good with between us. We know it's just friendly competition.
Wow. Well, switching gears a bit here. I believe it's always said faith, family, football. Is that safe to say?
Absolutely.
You're blessed to have your brother Tiki. You're
Yep.
one of 7 sets of twins to play in the NFL. Not only did you guys play collegiate football together, you grew up playing the game, but then you had a chance to make the transition into the
Sure.
NFL. What was that like, sharing those moments like with your twin brother?
Yeah. I mean, the best way I can describe it is that we were rivals in the most cordial way possible. We would jive each other all the time, and the most rewarding thing with having a twin going through the exact same thing that you're going through is that you always have your biggest fan right next to you. You always have your biggest critic right next to you, because you know how siblings are. Siblings they get after each other, but you're always rooting for him. I was always rooting for him as well. Is same with me. I remember even, as a little anecdote here, I remember having games at 4:00 and sitting in the stadium watching a 1:00 Giants game, just wanting to see what he did. I gotta concentrate on my game, but I'm like, what are the Giants doing today? Tiki scored today. Oh, it was that type of thing. But we were always tied at the hip, man. We knew we were going to the same college out of high school. That was without a question. Again, I told you he was redshirted, I was not. So we had different years of eligibility at Virginia. We both graduated from the business school of Virginia the same year, and I had another year to stay, and I had to make a decision whether or not I was going to go pro or not. And to be honest with you, a large part of my decision was that he wasn't going to be there anymore. It was like, if we're going to make the step, right, if we're going to separate, it didn't really feel right for me to have him stay another year at Virginia while he goes off into the NFL. It's like, I might as well do it now and just, go our separate ways, doing the same thing, doing what we've always done. And, for me, it didn't seem like the right decision at first. I remember George Welsh cussed me out. He was like, "You're not ready to go." And I'm like, "I'm ready to go," but it didn't seem like the right decision at first because of that first year in the league where I didn't play. But ultimately it was. I was ready, and I needed that next step. And I was glad to be able to do it when he did it, because we got to lean on each other. Our experiences were somewhat similar at the beginning of our careers, having to really kind of grind through just the maelstrom of being a young NFL football player. It's tough. Yeah, it's tough, especially when you're used to having a guy like we were at your side the whole time. It was first time that we were separated from each other and have these enormous phone bills. Trying to share each other's stories with each other daily, but we made it, and it was great. The way that he was able to thrive in the middle into late part of his career while I was thriving. It was really kind of in the same time frame, from that 2000 to 2006 or whatever time frame is when both me and him were at the top of our game. So it was fun. Got to make Pro Bowls together. So we got to be teammates 3 times after that. So.
Oh, that's awesome. Well, you're absolutely right when you say being your biggest fan and or critic, because he set the critic straight by saying he revolutionized the position. People don't give him credit for it. He was 10 years ahead of his time. The nickel corner is the most important position on the field these days. You got to play part, as you said, linebacker, part corner, part rush player, and he did it with excellence.
It's funny you say that, because hold on, see if I still have this text. I got a text from Mike Tomlin when they announced the Final 15. He's like, he said, "I would say congrats, but I don't think he minds me sharing this." But he said, "I would say congrats, but it's not like you bought a lotto ticket. It's your rightful destination." I was like, "Oh man, just you get a little moved or whatever." He goes, "Years have done nothing to provide better clarity for me on this matter. Years have done nothing but provide better clarity for me on this matter." It was it's good to have, friends, but, guys that are in the business and really have, the knowledge to say something like that. It means a lot. And, And he always talked about, hey man, I'm gonna tolerate you till I can replace you. I was like, buddy, you're gonna have a long time before you can replace me. And we still joke about that. He's like, I'm still trying to replace you, man. I haven't found that guy yet.
It's amazing. And you and your brother started co-writing children's books.
Yeah.
How did this idea come about? Because I love the titles. My Brother's Side, Game Day, Teammates, Kickoff, Go Long, Wild Card, Red Zone, Goal Line.
Yeah. We were at this lady, Paula Weisman. She worked at Simon & Schuster, and her son was a huge Giants fan. So obviously he was a Tiki fan. He was at that age at that time, about 14, 15, I would say. And she was like, oh, who are Tiki and she's like, who are Tiki and Ronde? Like, let me look up their story. And so she saw the story. She was like, man, I bet you they would be great children's books authors. This story is, it's somewhat profound, single mom raising two kids that end up both being professional athletes. And at that point we were already successful. And so she's like, you guys want to be authors? And we're like, well, what does that mean? how does a guy that graduated from the business school that hasn't, done an ounce of academia in 10 years become an author? And we had guys help us. We had writers, and we became basically glorified editors of our story. And we sat down with them and told them some stories and kind of pieced it together. And so the first three are picture books. By My Brother's Side was being the very first one, and it's a story. It's actually a very true story. Back when we were 10 or 11, we're riding in this construction site in Tiki. A bunch of us go down this hill, crazy, stupid hill, like too high for us to be on bikes. Tiki crashes and cuts his leg open. Has a gash across his knee. So he's in it, have to take to emergency room. Doctor's like, oh man, I don't know if he'll ever play again. That type of drama. Like, it was real drama. You could see his kneecap. You could see the bone on his kneecap. It was just, I'll never forget it. But so he has to sit out like a baseball season and don't know if he's going to be able to play football the next year. And, another story of overcoming adversity. He, of course he does, and goes on to be, great season that year, and on to high school and So those books were really a way for us to answer your question, finally, without I keep putting all these anecdotes in for you, but to answer your question in a simple way, Tiki and I were Verizon literacy champions at the time. Me down here in Florida, him in New York, and both of us were Verizon literacy champions in Virginia. So, launching these children's books, and then ultimately our chapter books after that, was a way to bolster that initiative. There's a learning loss between girls and boys at a certain age, and it's because they can't find material that they want to read. And Paula, rightfully and insightfully, said, because of you guys' story, because you're popular NFL players, I guarantee you we can get a lot of boys to read these books. And to this day, I'll be anywhere. Oh man, I read your books when I was a kid. Me and my brother used to sit down, and I'm like, I love that. And then I'm like, God, I'm old. That was a long time ago. This guy that's like 25 is like, oh, I read your books when I was a kid. I'm like, oh my God, how old am I?
That's great. Well, alongside football, you have a deep passion for golf. That's near and dear to your heart. Talk about some of the charities that you're a part of.
Yeah, the biggest thing that I'm doing now is I'm vice chair and incoming general chair of Valspar Championship here in Tampa.
Congratulations.
Yeah, thank you. Which is hosted by an organization called Copperhead Charities, which is local business men and women, civic leaders, and influencers and whatnot, that basically host a pretty fun tournament. And every single year we make this event, because it's more than just a golf tournament here. It's more like an event. We make the event $2.5 million a year to local charities, and it's a huge drive for me. I've been on this board for 5 years now, and it's become a passion. Obviously, I'm gonna take over the charity aspect of it next year. It's been more rewarding and more work than I thought it could ever be.
That's great. That's great.
Especially during COVID, when you get a tournament canceled on the death knell the week before it's supposed to take off. That was a challenge. So, but we're working our way back.
But that's great. That's great. Well, before I let you go, I got to talk to you about your Bucs. How excited for you for this team? I mean, wow, it's going to be a legendary quarterback day.
How about it? So I was joking with I do some digital stuff for the Bucs every day or every week after the game, and I was talking to the girl Abby that I do it with, and she was like, it's been we're talking about 18 years since you've been in a championship game. It was like 13 years since we've been in the playoffs, and I was like, who knew that it only took a quarterback to get us a playoff win? And so I said, you know what? For the longest time, I thought I was the greatest of all time. I think I'm not. He's pretty good, and it's not just his play on the field. It's his leadership style. And to me, and I'm an outsider because I'm not in the building. I don't get to see that this year because of COVID. But just him driving expectations for an entire team, I think that's special. I mean, the collection of talent that we have, and then you can talk about going to get Gronk, you can talk about getting AB, you can talk about getting any of these other free agents, but this team's been built for about 4 or 5 years to be in the position that it is right now, especially on defense. And to have one guy turn the corner for us, I mean, that pretty much makes you best at what you're doing ever, in my opinion.
I have to agree with you, Ronde, because from an outsider looking in, and you're dealing with, these are just extraordinary times that we're living in.
Sure.
Number one, to come in and just perform at that high level and make everyone around you better. I mean, this is the first year that he steps on the field with these guys. And they're not, like you said, they're not practicing like how you guys were doing 2-a-days and, 3-a-days, if you will.
Yeah.
Come on. So they're not hitting like that. So it speaks to the level of his, like you said, leadership.
I would agree, and to further that point, it's not like it's been pretty the whole time. They've had to deal with some tough. They lost to New Orleans twice badly.
Right.
They've had to deal with some struggles on offense, getting some continuity on that side of the ball. Fast start on defense, then kind of slowing down, and having to manufacture, finding new ways to win. What you should like if you're looking at this Green Bay game is that this Bucs team, the offensive line is better than you think they are. Tristan Wirfs might be the best right tackle in football, no kidding. And they got a running game. They can run Ronald Jones and Leonard Fournette. They don't have to use all that talent on the outside, of which they have a plethora. Probably the best wide receiver in the NFL. They can run a football. I think that's what it's going to take. It's what won them the divisional game last week. And you're going to Lambeau. It's going to be 20 degrees.
And your thoughts on defensive coordinator Todd Bowles?
Love him, and I've loved him for years. I remember when I was still doing TV, and I went to Arizona for the first time when he was on Bruce's staff there, and I had like three Arizona games in a row, and I was like, Bruce, I don't need to talk to you. He's like, you know what, I'm gonna send Todd in here. You talk to Todd, tell Todd, and give me a sense if you think he can be a head coach. And I was like, whatever. Yeah, sure, Bruce. Talk to Todd, and you're like, absolutely. This guy is innovative. What I like most about him is that he's humble. He's doing some very innovative things on defense, and he's not letting it change him. The guy is the same dude he probably was when he was a senior at Temple. And now, a defensive corner, having been a head coach, which I truly believe he will be again, because he's got that factor, that it factor that players I think are really drawn to. And I would have loved to play in this defense because anybody can play any position. It's fabulous. It's a fabulous defense. But might have if Tom's the GOAT, and then the other guy that they're playing this weekend might be the second best GOAT.
I mean, he's playing at another level. I got a chance to talk with Leroy, and Leroy basically said, he is in the zone. He really doesn't get rattled that often, but he's having fun.
The only time I've seen him get rattled is this year against Tampa at home. The only time. One time. So
wow.
There's that.
Wow.
That's not a gauntlet dropped by me. I'm just saying.
Just saying what you see. Exactly.
I'm just saying what I saw.
Well, lastly, Ronde, at the time of your retirement in 2013, not only were you the best pass rushing DB with 28 sacks, but you still hold Tampa Bay franchise record with 47 regular season interceptions for 923 return yards, 8 TDs. But the one thing that the accolade that I loved the most when I was doing my homework, team captain 9 times.
Yeah.
Team captain 9 times.
Yeah.
Not only did you do it on the field, but you did it off the field where you were able to lead men.
Yeah. I was very fortunate. When I first came here, Hardy Nickerson was our middle linebacker. He was our captain, unquestioned leader. And then Hardy leaves 2 or 3 years later, and then it's Derek Brooks, and then Derek Brooks and John Lynch. And so when those guys started to age out and get older and leave, the mantle dropped to me kind of seamlessly because I had been there for the longest, but also because I give them credit. I remember in my retirement party, I gave these guys credit individually and very specifically about how they taught me how to be a leader and how to be a man and how to lead other men, constructively, without criticizing, without, being the bad guy all the time. And, those 9 years that I got to be that, they were very special years. And I hope, and I think I did, at least with some of the guys that came after me, imparted some of that onto them. Because, franchises get disjointed over, tens of years, like, oh God, fans are like, oh, do you remember the early 90s? No, not really. I don't remember it, but there's players that played through those different segments. And if the leadership is right, it carries over into future generations. And that's all I was trying to do with my 9 years as captain. But it was because of the guys that came before me, for sure.
Do you feel like you left it all out on the field, Ronde? You left everything out there?
There's nothing left. I would have liked to have gotten 2 more sacks, I think. To be the only 40-30 guy. I'm going to blame Greg Schiano for that. My last coach. He wouldn't let me blitz.
Wow. Well, Ronde, we wish you nothing but the best. And thank you again for joining us right here on The Mission. Ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Ronde Barber.
Thank you.